Welcome again, everyone, to Disruption Drive, your go-to spot for reimagining mobility. My next guest is Ezra Goldman, CEO and founder of Upshift. Ezra is one of the true experts in everything mobility and is definitely building the future of car ownership. His expertise ranges from founding multiple micromobility and car sharing startups. He also has a master's degree in urban planning from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Now, a little bit about Upshift. Upshift is reimagining car access, envisioning the new world of autonomous cars. So instead of owning a car, you subscribe to a car with a usage-based monthly fee, and the car comes to you, run your errands, valet parks itself, all for one flat fee. So Ezra, welcome to the show, and I wanted to maybe start by asking you about, you're reinventing vehicle subscriptions using dealers as the supply base. Can you walk us through how you're seeing this problem and why this model makes sense right now?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Hari. I'm excited to talk about what we're building at Upshift. So, what we are reimagining is what happens to car ownership and the car sales and dealership model as cars become fully autonomous. And we are trying to get the dealers involved in that process as a new way to subscribe to a car directly out of the dealership. So, we are providing vehicles right now through our rental car partner. So the dealer is actually buying a 1-year-old rental car fleet. They hold it for a year or two and then resell it. And so the dealer is immediately above water on every vehicle. They can always sell the car and get out and make a profit. And we're getting consistent, high quality fleet for our vehicle subscribers. And we are managing all of the subscription management and the day-to-day customer service and experience for the member base, while the dealer is owning and operating the fleet. So it's a great way for them to get access to a new customer base and get learnings as well as create predictable recurring revenue streams for the dealer. We also have guaranteed below market terms from an OEM that we can leverage with guaranteed buyback rates. And so these things enable us to get very consistent vehicles at low cost that enable us to scale and make it work.
I see your point. Absolutely. So, talking about the actual experience itself, you've mentioned it a bunch of times. How does the vehicle get from dealer to the consumer and out to the member, as you said? And obviously, you're betting a bit on the future of autonomous vehicles. Eventually, the car will drive itself. But how? So, therefore, how do you see this evolving as the technology matures? But where are you today?
Yeah, so most people in cities don't drive every day, so they're only driving a couple of days a week. And so our existing subscription model is for 8 or 12 days per month of access time. Car gets delivered to your door whenever you need it. You pay one fixed monthly fee for the delivery, the insurance, and the car all in one monthly fee. As we move towards a teleoperated model and a fully autonomous model eventually in the future, we expect we can bring that down to half-day rates, hourly rate structures where you can get a car on a more fine-grained level. And so that brings down the delivery cost through a remote control driving experience and then eventually a fully autonomous experience. And so the teleoperated model enables us to scale to locations where dealerships are often located, so lower density markets than otherwise might be viable with shared mobility solutions. And it enables us to really optimize around a user base who drives more and more frequently. And so with traditional shared use models, it really only works for people who almost never drive in extremely high density markets. This enables us to get to people who drive more and more frequently in lower and lower density markets as that cost of delivery comes down and we're able to deliver and distribute more efficiently. And so as we get to a fully autonomous model at some point, obviously not in the near future, but we would be able to actually get the delivery cost to zero, which would enable us to scale to much finer grain amounts of time. So if you needed a car just for 30 minutes potentially, or an hour or 2 hours, that kind of a use case could be satisfied with a zero cost delivery service. Whereas right now, we're still doing day rates as the minimum amount of time that you can get a car.
Very interesting. And you've got some traction. You've got 50 cars already deployed per your website. And how are you learning about how, vehicle subscriptions, right? How are consumers interacting with this? And how do you think, obviously, autonomous vehicles, way vehicles will change that interaction because there's so much complexity in putting a computer on the road.
Yeah, so right now we've been delivering the cars. Initially, all the data that we've gathered has been from a manual delivery process in our first market of San Francisco. And what we find is it's usually people who either need a car for a part-time midweek commute, or they have some sort of regular, recurrent weekend leisure activity like hiking, golfing, surfing, skiing, something that involves taking a car for an extended period of time on a regular basis, but not a daily basis. Now, as we move towards a teleoperated model, we start moving out into lower density markets. We expect that we'll start to capture second cars, for example. So a lot of people own cars that
Right.
uh, they really just sit parked in the driveway most days of the week, especially with more and more people working from home. And those are the kinds of cars that we think would make a lot of sense to replace. And then as we really move to a fully autonomous model, that's where we expect we could actually start to replace almost any car in any kind of somewhat dense market because most people only drive their car 5% of the time, and the other 95% of the time it's just sitting there parked. And we expect that as the car is fully autonomous, it wouldn't really make sense to have a car that can drive itself just sit parked in your driveway. It's going to be out doing something either for you or it's going to be out serving some other member, which enables us to drive higher utilization off of the vehicle and reduce the number of total cars on our streets and make for a more efficient model overall.
I wanted to bring you back to the subscription model that you're building, and I worked in rental cars quite famously during the pandemic as well, and that was one actually a model we were testing. I know that at least over the last, I want to say decade, broad, maybe half decade, several OEMs, I think Volvo, Porsche, and Ford Canvas, they've tried similar things, vehicle subscriptions model, especially seeing, car ownerships decline. And most of them have sort of struggled. Tell me a bit about Upshift, right? How is Upshift different? And are you betting now on a fundamental change that this may be the inflection point for vehicle subscriptions?
Yeah, well, we think that the ownership model is going to change fundamentally as the cars become autonomous because, as I said earlier, the car can drive itself. It's not going to sit parked in your driveway. And so it doesn't make sense to have a fixed monthly fee for a car that's, fully dedicated to you 24/7. The other challenge with the prior models is that a lot of them were using off-lease vehicles that are over 3 years old, which is exactly when you start to hit various kinds of maintenance issues. And so we've always used either new or lightly used vehicles and only held them long enough to the point where they don't have maintenance issues. So it's similar to a sort of a rental fleet uh, mentality in terms of reducing that maintenance cost and reducing the depreciation. We've also selected vehicles that have really strong residual values. And so this enables us to have a model that works financially. Um, and then in terms of the utilization, as the car is delivered and as the car is moving into this lower and lower cost delivery and finer grain and higher utilization, we expect we can drive higher and higher utilization on the fleet, drive more revenue per car, and drive stronger unit economics as we scale. So this is uh, something like this will need to be in effect. And really, as Upshift moves forward, we're moving more and more in the direction of becoming a B2B SaaS as opposed to, an essentially dealer tech for car subscriptions of the future. So right now you have technology that facilitates, for example, uh, fleet leasing, leasing. But we think that there's an opportunity to be subscription tech essentially for dealers to offer a car as a service in the future.
That's really interesting. And, it's a fair point that, dealers across multiple of these disruptions, electric cars, and now, of course, autonomous cars, dealers are feeling left out. Just a recurring source of revenue for their maintenance and all that is starting to decline a little bit. And so this is definitely, I think, a step in it's going to involve dealers very well. But do tell me, maybe that's a segue into my next question, which is, look, how are you approaching these broader challenges in vehicle lifecycle management? So specifically, talk to me a little bit about your operational, maybe maintenance, operational risk, including things like maintenance that you're putting it on the dealer. The fleet management part looks like you're working with a dealer to do that. Tell me, because one of the maybe a little bit of an anecdote, but this was one of the challenges with Zipcar, which is part of Avis. But tell me about that. How are you? How is Upshift dealing with maintenance and fleet management?
Yeah, well, the dealers are, sorry, the vehicles are all under warranty as they're all new or nearly new vehicles. And so the dealer actually makes money on the maintenance. They perform the service. We take the cars into the dealer and they send an invoice to the manufacturer and they actually, they don't make a lot of money, but they make a little bit of money on the maintenance on those vehicles. And as soon as the vehicle needs any kind of maintenance whatsoever, it's being resold. So, tires, wipers, registrations, any of that becomes a point where you start to say, okay, it's time to put it back on the market. This is the same sort of model that rental car fleets operate on.
Very fair. Fair enough. Let me ask you, since you're definitely betting big on the autonomous vehicle industry, so you're definitely betting on personal car ownership of autonomous. So effectively, you're replacing personal car ownership rather than the rideshare broad industry. Is that a fair point to make? Because you're going after a disruption that, at least at this point, is considered second in sequence after everyone's going after rideshare right now.
Yeah, that's correct. We think it's a much larger market. I mean, if you look at the taxi market compared to car ownership market, it's exponentially larger. And mostly what people own a car for is not for a ride across town. They own it because a car can do a number of things better than anything else. It can carry a lot of people, a lot of stuff, go high speeds, and go long distances. And a robotaxi carries not a lot of people, not a lot of stuff, short distances, at low speeds. And so this is the place that we want to play in, is to say, how do we leverage this new connected, electric, shared, and autonomous vehicle technology to satisfy this part of the ecosystem? Because nobody's really looking at that. And until we do that, we're only going to satisfy all these in-town trips, and people will still need to own a car that they just don't drive all that often. And as the car becomes fully autonomous, it's not going to make sense to own a car, especially in a city where parking is at a premium. It's not going to make sense to have an autonomous car in a city that just sits there in front of your house, like especially parked on the street. I mean, it just completely makes no sense. And nobody's really rethinking what that actually means to have a car that you own that can drive itself. And there are companies, I mean, all of the auto manufacturers are trying to incorporate autonomous driving technology into their vehicle platforms. Now, I don't expect it's going to be like a Waymo that can just drive you to the mountains fully autonomously. But I think that in certain contexts, for example, in urban contexts where you can get the mapping data, et cetera, I think that we will start to see level four autonomous vehicles that you could purchase from an automaker in the next few years, probably by 2030, if not even sooner. There are some of the automakers are talking about 2027, 2028 timelines on the more aggressive time. Some are talking about 2030, 2032, 2035. So I expect in the next few years, we're going to start to see vehicles that you could just walk in and buy and own that will have some degree of autonomy. And so the question is really, what does that mean in terms of owning that car, and what kinds of new business models does that unlock?
Absolutely. As that's probably all we have time today. So everyone, look, definitely if you want to check out Upshift, go to upshiftcars.com. It's a wonderful, I think, reimagining of vehicle access and vehicle subscriptions. But Ezra, thank you for coming on the show. And we are, we're really, really, you're making some bets on really the future. There's a little bit of sequencing, and I think you're going to have to work with teleoperators, and then even of course currently with delivery workers, then teleoperators, and of course with the world of autonomy. But all those are coming, and so this could be one of the most disruptive companies that is still small enough that you could be an early adopter. So Ezra, do tell us, where are you? Where can, if I wanted an Upshift vehicle, which cities are you in right now?
We're currently in San Francisco, and we are planning a deployment in Sunnyvale coming up in the next, let's say Q1 of next year.
Amazing. So, folks in San Francisco and Sunnyvale, California, definitely go to upshiftcars.com and maybe be an early adopter. I think you won't regret it. Ezra, thank you for your time today, and really appreciate you coming on the show.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.